news and people making news in North Carolina. Here's your host, Sonia Williams.
Kwanzaa is a week-long celebration that honors African heritage and African American culture. Kwanzaa is observed from December 26th through January 1st. And here to tell us more about the core principles of Kwanzaa is Donna Washington, author and professional storyteller. Donna, welcome to Tar Heel Talk.
Well, thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Now, Kwanzaa was created in the mid-1960s. Tell us a little bit about this celebration and what it's all about.
Well, if you remember, of course, in the 60s, the African American community, the entire country really, was really going through the civil rights movement. And Dr. Maulana Karenga, his name was Ron, Dr. Karenga, noticed that there was no celebration in our culture, in the American culture, that was specifically geared to the African heritage. Partly it's because we were transplanted people.
Right.
And so we didn't actually get to bring any of our culture here. And what we did have was basically forbidden to us when we got here. So what he did was, in order to think about civil rights in a kind of different way, not just marching in the streets and demanding rights, but also talking about how do we build strong communities? What do you need to grow? He put this festival together based on ideas that are part of different African festivals, but there is no Kwanzaa festival in Africa anywhere. So he put together these various principles that he felt would be creating strong communities, and he called it Kwanzaa, and he used Swahili, because it's a Pan-African language, which means it can be found in many different places in Africa. And he used those principles to create this festival. So it's not a religious festival, it's a community festival. And in some ways it's an activist festival. So if you think about all the things that were going on in the 60s and all of the various things people were doing, this is a festival that is supposed to embody what it means to actively build a community.
Let's talk a little bit about the principles of Kwanzaa, because that is the core of what Kwanzaa is all about. So it's over 7 days. We're now on day 2, but let's go through each day and kind of talk about what each day symbolizes.
Okay. The first day is Umoja, unity, and it talks about the need for us to work together to do things. And it's, like I said, it's a community celebration. So you're dealing with us all building a community together, and it's gathering also. So it's not just that I'm going to go out and do something. I'm going to go out and do something with a lot of people. And it's also about gathering. We are stronger when we work together. Right. That's the first day. And the second day is Kujichagulia, which is self-determination. And self-determination means I decide who I am. I don't let anybody else decide who I am. And I speak for myself, and I don't let anybody else speak for me. And I define who I am, and I don't let anybody else define me. And if you think about what was going on in the 60s and how the African American community was really looking for a way to say, we are Americans, and we deserve the right to be given all of the freedoms and all of the privileges that go along with being an American. Kujichagulia is about the power to stand up and assert that you deserve that. And so that's what the second day of Kwanzaa is all about.
And day 3, and I won't even attempt to try to pronounce these names, but day 3
is Ujima. Or Ujima. And that is collective work and responsibility. And that means that it is your job to work with other people in the community to make the community better. Right? We have a collective responsibility to the community. It's not, I mean, I have a personal responsibility, but everyone in that community also has a responsibility. So one of the things you might do is go out and clean up a park, right, in your community. That would be at the civic part of this. Because in each day, even though of course there's like internal things that you're supposed to do, there's also a way to do community outreach for that. So collective work and responsibility, we clean up a park. We might go and help people register to vote. We might go and help, paint a community building, various things that need doing in the community. On the third day, or Ujima, that's when you go and do those things.
Okay. And day 4?
It's Ujama. That's going and patronizing businesses that are owned and operated by African Americans. So a lot of, and in the 60s again, the business of African Americans opening their own businesses and running their own businesses, being self-employed and not just being a cog in the system. So in our own communities, we have to patronize our own businesses. If we do not buy from those businesses, who will? And if in the day's world, like when we are celebrating Kwanzaa, we expand it out and we go also to independent businesses. So you might go to 9th Street Bookstore instead of Barnes & Noble's.
Right.
So going to businesses in your community that are small businesses, mom and pop type businesses, and eschewing the big corporations. And that's what it's about. It's about using your money in your community and not sending it out through other places.
Okay. Right, and the next, we're looking at day 5. I got this one, Nia.
So that's purpose. And Nia is really, really, really about having something that you're moving towards, having a purpose in your community, having an internal purpose, so that you're not just sort of floating from day to day and letting things be. And if that purpose is, I want to get to college, or I want to get this particular job, or I want this. You need to have an internal purpose, but you also need to think about it as a collective purpose and a community purpose. So if your community needs to say, I don't know, let's say you need a community center. How do you even begin thinking about how you go about getting that? If there's a problem with homelessness in your community, how do you start thinking about how to move away from that? You have to have some purpose to what you do, or you're just marking time and it's not going anywhere. And so again, if you think back to the 60s and why people were marching and the kinds of things they were doing, they were working towards an outcome. You must have a purpose. And Nia is about focusing on that.
Okay. And day 6?
Day 6. That is Kuumba, creativity. So creativity is where you have to leave the world more beautiful than you found it.
I like that.
So it's a day for art and music and drumming and all the things that sort of make our hearts sing. And it's also the Feast of Karamu on that night. Now the Feast of Karamu is the big dinner at Kwanzaa. And at Kwanzaa time, you're supposed to make foods that are identified with the African American experience, or you can also have African foods.
Okay, we're going to have to take a break right here. I want to spend a lot of time talking about food, so we will talk more in just a minute.
Okay.
We'll be back with more on Kwanzaa after these messages. Today's show focuses on the week-long celebration of Kwanzaa that honors African heritage in African American culture. And with us again is author and professional storyteller Donna Washington. Donna, before the break, you were all fired up telling us about the big festival on day 6 of Kwanzaa. Caribou.
Karamu.
Karamu. Almost.
Okay, you almost got it. It's Swahili. The idea behind Karamu is that that's the night that everybody gathers and there's music and there's dancing and there's food. So you can have anything that would either be an African dish or it would be a dish that was traditionally eaten in African American families.
Okay.
And it can be anything, what do you normally like? I mean, obviously there's greens and there's ham and there's sweet potatoes and there's chicken.
Lots of good food.
It's lots to eat. I always make black-eyed peas because black-eyed peas and sesame seeds are considered good luck. So you eat black-eyed peas for a good year, and then traditionally in Africa they have something called beni cakes. and they're sweet cakes with sesame seeds, and they recommend that as something you could eat at Kwanzaa. And you can find recipes for those online. And they're just called Benny cakes. And so you could sweet potato pie, I mean, we just had a big holidays meals. You could eat some more.
As if we need a reason to eat more. Right. But I find that it's very similar. Some of those traditions, the black-eyed peas, good luck. We also celebrate that with our New Year's traditional dinner of black-eyed peas and the greens and all those things for luck and prosperity.
Right.
But talk a little bit about what Kwanzaa is and what it's not, because I know that there has been some confusion in terms of whether it's a holiday to replace Christmas or is it a religious holiday. Talk about what Kwanzaa is and what it's not.
As I said before, Kwanzaa is a civic experience, and it's a time to reflect on your community, and it's a time to reflect on what you need to do as a family going forward. It's a time to think about what your personal responsibility is to the world around you and yourself and your family. It is not a religious holiday of any kind. It has no connotation for religion at all. You can celebrate it no matter what you believe. And it is not a replacement for Christmas. I've heard someone say that and it's made up. And I think that's funny, right? It's a made up holiday. Every holiday is made up somewhere. It's all started somewhere. Don't even get me started about what Christmas was like in our country and when it was first founded, all right?
Yeah, that's another show.
That's another
show.
So, so Kwanzaa is not a religious holiday or anything like that. It is a festival about civic responsibility. And also to celebrate the fact that a portion of our population heralds from Africa, comes from Africa, and that there are a lot of things that African Americans brought to this country, and a lot of things that African Americans have contributed to this country. And so during Kwanzaa, you can think about that as well in terms of inventors and writers, and you can bring all of this out and celebrate all of this. And the Karamu, the big party, is a time to really get underneath all of that and really just enjoy something. And there are, in fact, Karamu celebrations and Kwanzaa celebrations all over the Triangle. So if you want to find one, all you have to do is just Google Kwanzaa celebration. There's one, get a big one in Cary. They're all over the place. So you don't have to be an African American to go and enjoy them.
Is Kwanzaa just a celebration for African Americans?
No, I mean, well, it was originally created for that. But as I was talking about the various things that you do at Kwanzaa, none of them were specific to only what African Americans need. So if you would like to go to a Kwanzaa celebration just to see what it's like, there's so much fun. If you want
there's
to go,
music,
there's dancing, there's drumming. So you should go and experience it. And there's usually some kind of small food there. And there's zawadi, which are little gifts that you make, homemade gifts, handmade gifts that you give at Kwanzaa time. And they don't have to be exotic. Now, some people, they can go a little, far out if you want to go buy something else. But we have been given enough gifts over the time. So these are usually handmade gifts that are personal and that say something about your creativity. Because it's Kumbh, it's the night of Kumbh. So.
And I want to make sure we get the day 7 in.
Imani.
That is Imani.
Faith. You have to have faith in yourself. You have to have faith that things will get better, that things can go forward, and you have to keep working for that. There are some who also add religion into that when you talk about faith. But I don't do that in our family, and you aren't required to do that. But it does mean, like, who you are, faith in yourself, faith in your community, faith that things will get better, and faith that you can make a difference.
Now, you have written 2 books that do a good job of talking about Kwanzaa for our little ones. Tell us a little bit about your first book, The Story of Kwanzaa.
Well, I wrote it because I got a call from my editor about almost 20 years ago now, I guess, and she said, we would like you to write us a book about Kwanzaa. And I said, how come you think I would know anything about Kwanzaa? I didn't grow up celebrating this. My parents didn't really know anything. My parents had never heard of it. And so she said, well, we want you to write a book. I said, I have to celebrate it first. And then after I celebrate, I'll tell you if I like it. And then maybe I could. Well, I did, and I had such a good time. And I just found it was really being able to really think and meditate about a lot of cool stuff. And I decided, you know what? I will write a book about it, and we celebrate it to this day. Every year we celebrate it. And so the book takes you through what the celebration is, day by day, gives you some ideas of things to do. There's some crafts in the back for Zwadi.
Oh,
There's actually a
nice.
recipe for Benny cakes in the back. And it just tells you straight up what it is and how you celebrate it. It's a really simple, non-fiction book for kids right around 3rd, 4th grade.
That is perfect. I think we all could use that, just that step-by-step guide, because I know that there are a lot of things that happen on each day. There you have the candles, and so that step-by-step guide would be extremely helpful.
Right. And it just, you whatever day you're on, you light a candle. There's a way to set up the kinara, red, green, red, green. Some people do red on one side and green on the other side. But there's a traditional way to set it up, and in the book, we talk about that. And lighting the candles, and whether you're going to sing or tell a story, or how you focus on the day, and you can pour libations for the ancestors. There's just lots of things you can do.
Right.
And it's open for a lot of different interpretations of how you want to do it, but you need to keep the core of it pretty solid. So that book would be a great place to start, even if you're a grown-up and you have no idea how to do it.
Absolutely. I'm thinking, hey, I think we need to get that in our house. And people, speaking of getting that book, people can go to your website,
They can.
DonnaWashington.com, and they can purchase the book from your website. They can also access your blog. Lots of ways to connect with you.
Right. You can also go to Quail Ridge.
That's even closer. We're going to take another break, Donna. We'll talk more in just a minute.
All right, thanks.
Don't go away. Tar Heel Talk will continue after these messages. Welcome back to Tar Heel Talk. I'm Sonia Williams. Kwanzaa is a week-long celebration that honors African heritage in African American culture. And Kwanzaa is observed from December 26th through January 1st. And with us again to discuss Kwanzaa is our author and professional storyteller, Donna Washington. Now, Donna, you've written 2 books that relate to Kwanzaa. We talked about your first book, The Story of Kwanzaa. Tell us about your second book.
Well, it came to be, it's called Little Rabbit's Kwanzaa. And it came to be because we have a lot of factual information about Kwanzaa, but one of the things that helps a holiday survive or a festival survive is engaging younger people with it. And there really aren't a lot of books that are fun at Kwanzaa time that you could just, like a librarian could just whip out and go, I have a Kwanzaa book, right? You've got Christmas books, you've got Thanksgiving, there's books on, Hanukkah, all of the Ramadan, all the things that are happening. So I want there to be a body of literature that's just fun. So Little Rabbit's Kwanzaa is a fun, really silly, very lovely picture book that anybody could read, and you don't actually have to know anything about Kwanzaa in order to enjoy it.
That's wonderful. And people can access your book. They can find out more about your book and purchase your book by going to your website, DonnaWashington.com, and they can also read your blog at DonnaWashington.com. As we are in the midst of celebrating, we're on day 2 now of Kwanzaa, it's important to understand that this celebration is not just for African or the African American community, it's for the community at large. Talk a little bit about what you've seen over the years in terms of different people of different backgrounds celebrating Kwanzaa.
So originally it was conceived, as I said before, as an African American festival. But the truth about any festival or any gathering that we have in our country, any celebration, is that if it doesn't actually speak to everybody in some level, that it can't survive over the long haul. It won't become part of our culture.
Right.
And just as I went through the days of Kwanzaa and we were talking about what each one does, there is nothing specific to the African American community that you would say, oh, well, that can't work in my community. We don't have faith in anything. There's no purpose here.
Right.
So you can take all of the Nguzo Saba, it's what it's called, the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. You can take the 7 principles and you can apply them to your lives and your own communities. You say to me, well, you know, we live in a big Hispanic community and there are no African Americans here, but I bet there are businesses in your community that are owned and run by Hispanic Americans there, as opposed to you know, going to, well, not that there's anything wrong with going to Barnes & Noble, but, you know, to be mindful of where are the businesses in your community that are run by your neighbors, run by the people who live with you or near you. You don't have to be African American to go clean up a park with your kids, or work in a homeless shelter, or paint part of your school. You just don't, you know, those things transcend any culture at all, or any color, any ethnicity. So thinking about the way all of those various principles can apply to your life, can apply to your community, I think that would be a great thing.
For people who have just, you know, exhausted themselves celebrating Christmas and are gearing up for their New Year's Eve celebrations, what would you say to them about the importance of celebrating Kwanzaa as well? Because a lot of people might say, well, you know, we've partied enough, we've celebrated enough, we need a little break in between Christmas and New Year's, but that's the time that we have Kwanzaa, so why celebrate?
We've just had an orgy of food. We've just had an orgy of giving things to each other. We've just spent a ton of money. We've just done a lot of really big out things, but mostly they're, you know, in our communities. They're like within our families. And whereas I think at one point Christmas might very well have been about like focusing and all of that. Mostly we're from Black Friday, right? Is that what it's called?
That's what it's called, yes.
All the way through, it's just like you're just buying things and you're worried about giving things. Kwanzaa is a really relaxed, pretty chill way to go from Christmas to New Year's, because it's not big and showy like that. You know, you gather in the morning and you light the Kinara and you talk about what the name of the day is, if it's Nia, if it's Kujichagulia, and each person can go around and talk about what they hope to accomplish in the coming year. They can talk about what things they have done over the year that they felt showed that particular Nguzo Saba. You can have a really quiet, small celebration where you remember your loved ones. And that's what you do for the day ritualistically. And then if you want to spend the day like going for a walk as a family, or like I said, maybe an hour, you know, working at, you know, soup kitchen, that is something that you could do that is not overblown. If you're exhausted, stay home and read together. You know, find ways to incorporate, and it's because what do we do between New Year's and Christmas? We lay around and complain how much food we ate,
and how much money we spent,
and we watch a lot of TV maybe. This is a way to keep thinking about all the principles that are supposed to be going on, right? Christmas, goodwill to all men, and, you know, peace on earth. This is an extension, not just saying, gosh, I wish there was peace, but what do I do to create the peace I want? What do I do to create the goodwill that I want? So think of it as an extension of all the things we're supposed to be focusing on at this time of the year.
And your book, The Story of Kwanzaa, will lay out day by day what you can do to celebrate.
Yeah,
Kwanzaa.
it tells you what the days are, and it talks about things that you can do and how that impacts you, and gives you a little oomph to like go out and give it a shot. And like I said, call around, find out, or go online, find out where the celebrations are. There are probably a lot. Go to one and just enjoy it.
Yes.
You'll be hooked.
A great experience. Donna Washington, author and professional storyteller, thank you so much for educating us on Kwanzaa, and thank you for being our guest today.
Well, thank you for having me. It was wonderful.
All right. That's it for this week's Tar Heel Talk. To comment on this or other episodes of the show, send us a message on our Facebook page or an email to tarheeltalk@fox50.com. I'm Sonia Williams. Thanks so much for watching. Happy Kwanzaa.